Hey everyone, welcome to the Mint Door podcast. I'm Dr. Laura Schwint.
And I am Dr. Karen Tyndall.
And we are happy to welcome Dr. Laura Brenner to the podcast today. Welcome, Laura.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's so awesome to have you here.
Yeah, nice to have you in our room.
Yes. So we are here to talk a little bit about you. We'd like to hear your kind of version of your story leading up to where you are now. But let's just highlight the fact that you have a fantastic, successful Facebook group called Dentist Side Gigs, which is a fun and interactive place where dentists are talking about doing stuff other than dentistry. So congratulations, but tell us a little bit of your story, how it wove you to where you are now.
Yes. So I always thought I wanted to be an orthodontist. I won't go into that far back detail, but as a kid, I always thought that would be really cool. And because when I got my braces off, that was an amazing experience. And so I wanted to help people smile, and I wanted to do something that would give me security and help me enjoy my life, and I could help people. And I had all of the best intentions going into dentistry. And then I got into dental school, practiced for 10 years. And in year 3 of practice, I realized that I hated my work. Mm-hmm. And after investing in it from the time, like mentally, from the time I was in probably 10th grade, mm-hmm. To then all of the other tangible investments, like the time and the money, that was a really tough pill to swallow. So in year 3, I started exploring what else could I do in dentistry that wasn't clinical. And this was, keep in mind, this was 2004. So there weren't really any options. And I remember reaching out to my dental supply rep and saying, hey, can I take you to lunch? I want to know all about your job. Tell me, like, is it something I could do? And so I had this moment of being slightly resourceful, and he talked me out of it. Mm-hmm. He said, you don't want to do that. If you it'll be a waste of your degree. And so I really appreciated it. And at the same time, it silenced me. And I realized, all right, I've just got to keep doing this. Mm-hmm. So I switched jobs. I switched jobs several times over the 10 years of my career. And in year 7, in my third and final job, I was like, it's still not getting better. Mm. And so I began really focusing on how can I get out of this? It was a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. Looking back, clinical dentistry wasn't a fit for me. Mm-hmm. Everything that's involved, I thought it was going to be a lot of warm fuzzies and helping people and freedom. And it can be that for people. But for me, it was a lot of burden and a lot of guilt and a lot of worrying. Mm-hmm. And so finally, actually, one day, it was probably in year 7, I came home one day and my husband gave me an ultimatum. And he was like, we can't do this anymore. He's like, I don't care what we have to do, but you can't keep coming home like this from work every day. We can sell our house if we need to. We can move. I don't care, but you need to sort this out or our marriage is not going to last. And so kind of an ultimatum, but really it was permission. It was permission to think outside the box and begin exploring what else I could do. So I started that process in my 7th year. I was going to say 2007, but which maybe actually was around then. And I worked with the career coach and I got therapy and I did a ton of personal development all the time. And eventually I found a way to leave my clinical practice through weight loss coaching. And I don't mean nutritional coaching. I don't mean, healthy lifestyle coaching. I'm literally specifically weight loss coaching. So I call that my bridge career. because it was something that I was able to do to bridge my way out of the pain that I was in dentistry and into something that was a little bit better for myself. So it was good. It was a lot of the stuff I liked in dentistry, the coaching and the talking to people. You know, a lot of us, that's our favorite part, is talking to patients, right?
Right.
So I was able to do that. And it was good for a while, but I always knew it wasn't my forever. So what happened was, when I started that, I found a blog post titled 10 Reasons I Hate the Dentist. And I was like, bleep, bleep. I won't tell you what I said. We'll keep it PG. Right. But I was like, all right, well, here's 10 reasons your dentist probably hates you too. And that was my open letter reply to this blogger who I didn't know. And I'm sure she was mad at me because I linked to her blog and she got harassed by so many dentists. You know how people are online, they're so mean. But I didn't know at the time that, you know, maybe I should have gotten permission, which she probably would have let me, because we all wanted exposure and attention with our blogs. But anyway, that blog attracted, it connected me with dentists from really all over the world who were like, yeah, this is what I experienced too. And how did you get out? So that was something that I knew was always kind of in the background of, what can I do in the dental space? But I wasn't confident enough to just go do it just after quitting dentistry, because I was telling myself, you're just a quitter. Like, anyone can quit. That's not a big deal. And so who are you to help other people start a new career if you can't find a new career? And so I really needed to go through the process. So the weight loss coaching, and I did a lot of other stuff I dabbled in, that really ended up over about 6 years building my confidence with being outside of dentistry. And finally, I was like, it's time to go back. So I got my coaching certification and basically did what I'd been wanting to do for 6 years, which was help other dentists design their careers on their terms. And that could be starting a side gig. It could be career change. It could be working 2 days a week. So I started doing that. And then I've since expanded it to include hygienists as well, because we're the same. We've both committed to this. And we oftentimes feel like we don't have other skills, but it's not true. We have a lot of other skills.
When you were talking about, like, very early on, you knew that, like, dentistry wasn't for you. And a picture came into my head of exactly the same situation, like, and how you describe it, like dentistry, it was the stress and the burden and the guilt and all those feelings that went with it. And I think I probably was maybe not even a year out of dentistry, and I'd just got married. And the lady who made my wedding rings, her dad was a dentist, but she used a lot of his dental tools to make the jewelry. And I remember thinking, what else can I do? Like, I could be a jeweler. I could do jewelry. And I even bought a book that somebody had written on how to make tiaras, because I was getting married. And I was like, I could make tiaras with my skills. So at any point, like in those early days, what were your first thoughts about what could you do that wasn't dentistry?
Oh, I love that question. And also, I should add that I really liked dental school. I didn't know it. And you're saying it was your first year out. I didn't know until I got out. And by the way, those first 3 years were okay because I had hope. I knew that it's going to be hard when I first get out. And so, but as long as I grind through, push through it, I'll get through, and then it's going to be easier and I'll hit that magical place. And when 3 years in happened and I didn't hit it, that's when I really became hopeless. And that's when I started thinking, I don't like it. Okay, maybe I need to do it for 5 years. And then when 5 years came and went, it was like, this isn't working. So to your question, I did not know. I didn't know. And I think so many of us, we pour ourselves into this identity of being a dentist or a hygienist or whatever specialist you are, that we don't allow ourselves to explore what else we can do. So I love that you were looking at jewelry making, because what a great shift. I mean, that would be a great side shift because they're so related. I will tell you, I loved casting gold crowns. I loved watching the gold melts when you remember when we had to do that. That I loved. But I wouldn't even allow myself to dream or think of what else I could do. And I see this is really common with people, and I don't really understand why. I'm not clear on that. If you guys have any insight, I'd love to know. But it's like, it's almost like we're embarrassed. We're embarrassed to try anything. We're afraid of either failing or what people will think. But even if we're not telling anyone, it's like we're scared to allow ourselves to get creative and dream. So I kind of forced myself to do that. And I remember, because I couldn't do any of it on my own, I remember sort of clinging to some of my husband's interests. Like he liked brewing beer. And so it was right when the gluten-free world was starting. And we were talking about, well, how could we brew gluten-free beer in our basement? And I'm not a huge beer drinker. And beer is kind of like baking. I'm not really a baker. I love to cook. But I loved I was looking at, like, I love the community, like the beer community was always a creative, fun one. So I was like, I could get myself into that. But even with that, it wasn't really my thing that I was interested in, you know? And I was always looking at, like, what could I be interested in that could actually make me money? And I think that caveat of turning it into a business held me back. If I could have just looked at, like you're saying, like, just make jewelry, then I would have done it and expanded my creativity and no strings attached. Then I would begin to learn about myself and my interests could expand from there. But I think when we put that pressure of, this has to be my escape, this has to get me out of here, we actually like ruin the fun of it. And we don't allow it to even be a possibility.
You know, it's a really good point, and it makes me think of the rep that you went out to lunch with, who said you're going to waste your career, you're going to waste, you know. And I think you have had several posts and maybe even a blog about this, but the shame wrapped up in that 4-letter word, I quit dentistry, right? Quit. And that,
which probably letter word?
Yeah.
Right. There's several.
There are several, but that 4-letter word.
Right.
So how did you feel when you first used that 4-letter word, I quit, compared to how do you feel about it now? And how do you help your clients make that transition?
Yeah. So that, you know, thinking back, I'm like, oh, gotta go back. Cause, you know, I've been out, I practiced for 10 years and I've been out for 10 years. So when I think about, you know, quitting 10 years ago, yeah, I think at the time there was a lot of judgment and I felt like a quitter and I felt like other people can tolerate this or other people like it. What's wrong with me that I don't like this? So there was a lot of judgment and, as you say, shame. And really the process of leaving dentistry and then having the next 6 years before I got into this coaching business was really a valuable time of redefining what success meant, redefining what quitting looks like. And I actually wrote a blog post about this that was, I don't remember the title, but it was something like, why quitting isn't the easy way out. And when you've dedicated so much to this career or to something in your life, maybe it's a marriage, you know, it doesn't have to just be dentistry, but when you've committed so much of yourself to something, walking away is often the harder thing to do. It's much easier to stay put and to keep going and to grind through it and to grit your way through it. It is so much harder to have to face your demons, you know? And so when I'm helping other people with this prospect, I mean, the first thing is I want to assure them that you don't have to quit, right? Like, and you guys know, I love the whole side gig approach. So the reason the side gig approach is so amazing is, first of all, dentistry, there's no other field, there's no other career on the planet that is so side gig friendly, you know, like you can do dentistry a couple days a week and make a decent income. And there are very few careers that allow you that. So it's like, you know, instead of quitting, why don't you take the safe way, which is to do something, just explore. You don't have to quit dentistry. You don't have to jump off the cliff, you know, which also involves throwing away everything you've ever invested into your career. So you don't have to do that. You can do it like Karen, if you had like continued doing the jewelry making stuff, you could have always done that on the side.
Yeah.
And still had dentistry. And then if you look at the people in dentistry, a lot of them who do have these entrepreneurial businesses that are focused on help working with dentists, but they're non-clinical, right? If you look at all of them, the way they started was with a side gig. And then eventually, if your side gig, it may just fulfill it and you get to do dentistry a couple days a week, and that's a good combination for you, or maybe it'll take over. And dentistry will become more and more your side gig, while your side gig becomes more and more your full gig. If you look at almost anyone in our dental space who's started a business in addition to practicing, that's how they did it. So it's like, maybe we don't have to quit. And maybe it's harder to quit than stay put. It definitely takes more courage.
So you said that, like, how unique dentistry is to be able to have a side gig alongside what you're doing. And I know a lot of our listeners, we have women doctors and physicians as well as dentists as well. Have you heard of anybody who would be your equivalent for in medicine, or
oh yeah, actually
things like that exist?
So this is funny. I don't know if you know this, Karen, but so in 2020, there's a woman who, her name is Michelle Mudriley. She basically cold emailed me. It was like COVID had shut everyone down. She sent me this, she reached out on my contact form on my website, and she said, hey, I'm a doctor and I work with physicians doing the same work that you do with dentists. And I host this live, like non-clinical, non-traditional career summit. And if you want to talk, let's talk. Because with COVID, she was doing it live, but then in person, but then she had to go virtual. So then she started thinking, this is really fun. How could I do this with other professions? But she recognized that people really trust someone who knows what they are specifically going through. So she thought she would reach out to me to do it with dentists. And so we started what we at the time called the Next Dentist Career Conference. And so it was using the work she had done with doctors, and we geared it towards dentists. So I don't know if you knew that, Karen.
No, I didn't.
Isn't that funny? So, and here's what she tells me all the time, which is really interesting. So if I've been doing it for 5 years now, she's been doing it for 15. And she always says, doctors in medicine, we're 10 years ahead of where you guys are in dentistry. So 10 years ago, doctors were having these same conversations of, what else can I do? And what are the opportunities? And they've really pioneered a way to find more and more non-clinical careers and positions in a space where they didn't necessarily exist before. So she always says that in dentistry, we're now where they were 10 years ago. And we're just starting to see this as a thing that we're looking for. And so that makes it harder because there are not as many opportunities. But it also might make it easier because there's not as much competition.
Yeah.
So interesting, right?
Yeah, fascinating.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And there are several other physicians who do that kind of coaching.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's just so nice when you can bring the two worlds together and you get to interact, because Laura and I often talk about this, but we all have the title doctor, and dentists have this speciality of here, or maybe like we could call it head and neck, whatever. And then doctors, some of them specialize in the whole body, but some of them might be just eye doctors. Some of them might be ear, nose, and throat. Some of them, we all have tiny little specialities in our section of the body that we all look after patients. We're all striving to do our best for our patients and nurture and look after and care. And there's not that much difference between us. Mm-hmm. And there's another thing there that you've just highlighted. Just the medical field was quicker at getting on the side gigs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're all the same. And that could be because of the state of healthcare, right? Compared to the state of, the state of medicine versus the state of dentistry. Mm-hmm. That could be part of it. Mm-hmm. But, my group, someone recently asked a question like, oh, do you think doctors feel, have the same stresses that we have? And someone said, oh, no, I don't think doctors. And I was like, yes, they do. Yes, they do. So we all think that we have it harder than other people. But
I was going to say, I think from what we see with the people that we work with and meet, I would say it is so similar. Mm-hmm. There are some differences which exist, but I would say on the whole, it is so similar what everybody goes through.
Yeah.
I agree.
So working with people and side gigs, I'm curious, what is the most unique side gig that you've ever heard of at this point?
Oh, I love this question so much because the reason I love this too is because people always ask like, well, what are some typical things that dentists can do? And really that question limits our possibilities. Mm-hmm. And so I love to find the zany things. So there is a guy, and I don't remember where he's from, but I found him online. He is a dentist and he quit dentistry and became a Cirque du Soleil clown.
No way.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Isn't that is right? So cool.
Now, I can't remember his last name, but I wish someone could introduce me to him because I really wish, and I can't find him anywhere online. His name is Jim. I can't remember his last name. He is a dentist and he retired from dentistry so that he could be an NFL ref. Isn't that cool? And you know how he started? See, I've stalked him a little bit as much as I can online, but I can't find him, but I would love to share his story. Mm-hmm. He started out by just, being in dentistry and then volunteering and refereeing games at the child level, and then at the high school level. And then he just worked his way up and ended up landing an NFL gig.
That was cool.
So those are two. I could go on and on if you guys want, but those are two of my favorites.
I love that. I love the thought of he started just as, a kid ref. Mm-hmm. And you think, so often we think we have to replace our dentistry with the exact equivalent. But like you said, sometimes you just need to redefine success. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And your expectations of it, right? Like you didn't just start out being a successful dentist. You had to go to high school and then college, right? And then dental school. Like, why do we think that we went through this process that was so slow and thoughtful and intentional, but that then we're going to be able to be at the top of a different game without doing anything? Mm-hmm. It's unrealistic.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you probably will attest to this, is the journey is the most beautiful piece of it.
It really is. And I think about if you're starting your side gig right now, or like, moments in my coaching business, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this too, where you have these moments where you're like, well, this is stressful. Like, what if nobody wants to, what if nobody wants what I have to give? And you have those moments. And I always think we're going to look back 10 years from now and think, remember those days when everything was exciting and we were really pushing ourselves. And so we can spend so much time trying to get there that we miss out on the moment, the right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. The journey matters. It really is the best part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. So you have a exciting event coming up this summer called the Side Gig Summit. Would you like to just highlight a little bit about that and what's involved with that?
Yes. So it is going to be part of the Dental Festival in Nashville. And my summit will be on Friday, July 8th.
Okay.
And it's going to be an opportunity to learn about real estate, which can be active or passive income. We're going to have an amazing speaker who's going to talk about debt reduction, because, you know, what do you do when you're a high income earner or a decent income earner, but you don't have that extra net worth, that cash to invest in something, but it's tied up in debt? If we can reduce your debt, it's effectively like you're making that money, but then you can actually free up your money to invest, right? So looking at debt reduction, really cool stuff. Crypto, we're going to look at crypto. We're going to talk to 2 people who are actually twins, and I love them because they're twins who became dentists.
Oh, cool.
And they both left clinical and have non-clinical jobs.
Wow.
Non-clinical careers. So we're going to focus on the job side of it with non-clinical careers and how you can get into those, and the more entrepreneurial side, where if you know you want to work for yourself, and how you can start up something without having to be, you know, an Elon Musk type of entrepreneur. So we're going to focus on all of that, and it's going to be a lot of fun to we've got to start with knowing that we can do this, and we have options, and we don't have to stay stuck in lives that aren't working for us.
That sounds like an incredible, like, I don't need a side gig, but I want to learn about all of the like the crypto and those things that interest me too. So this doesn't even have to be like, those topics could be for anybody that wants to learn about just an extra, even like a hobby alongside, like,
right. And I'm glad you said that, Karen, because I always forget that when I say side gig, that could be investing in crypto and even making a little bit of side money off of that, right? It doesn't have to be a job, and it doesn't have to be a business. It could be anything that starts with a hobby that's bringing in a little bit of extra cash. And that will take the pressure off your main gig. But yeah, and like a side gig could be 1 day a week working for a dental insurance company, you know? So it's not like it has to be selling your crafts on Etsy,
right?
Which it could be, but it's not limited to just that.
Yeah. Right. It's not an all or none approach, and it's probably never a bad idea to have more than one source of income.
Agreed.
So yeah, that sounds really interesting. Like Karen said, I'd be interested in all of those topics. So you're right. It opens eyes to, you know, the possibilities, what else is there. And, you know, I do have to congratulate you, because you are probably one of the supreme connectors. You love connecting people with other people that mesh together well. You're so good at that. And I think that's another important thing, because dentistry can get so isolating and you can feel so alone. And you do a wonderful job of helping people feel like they aren't alone, and that there's someone in a similar situation or a few steps ahead of them that they could connect with. And so thank you. That's one of your superpowers for sure.
Thank you. That means a lot, because it is important to me. I love it. So thank you.
Yeah.
We can tell. Tell.
Yeah.
Oh. And then you have a phenomenal website, and on your website is an article that you can subscribe for. It called 6 Reasons You Are Burned Out in Your Dental Career and What to Do About It. So that is on your website, which is lolabeescareercoaching.com. And we will have the links to this and the summit and that blog post that you referenced, Why Quitting Isn't the Easy Way Out. We'll put a link to that blog post because I think that will be good. But can you explain maybe just a little bit about your name, the Lolabees Coaching?
I'm so glad you asked that because it is the weirdest name, right? But I figure if we can have a thing called dental nachos, I can have Lolabees. I always say that. And Lolabees is, it's Bob Ross always called things happy accidents, right? Lolabees is a happy accident. It is a much longer story, but when I started blogging, so my email name was Lolabees for years. And Laura Brenner, Laura B. I tried to be Laura B, but that was taken. So it just evolved into Lolabees, long story. So that was always my email. And then when I started my blog, I was blogging about food and travel. I wasn't blogging about dentistry. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't care what I name this. I'm going to name it Lolabees. And then I had my blog post go viral. And so people kind of knew Lolabees, a few people, not a lot, but people knew Lolabees. So when I decided to turn my blog into a real website with a business, I just didn't want to change. I didn't want to have to totally have people figure out who I was. And also kind of didn't care about a name. I mean, names are important, but it's what you do with it, right? So I was like, I'm just going to leave it. I don't care. I'm just going to turn it from Lolabees into Lolabees Career Coaching. Mm-hmm. But it turns out really cool that the bumblebee, I don't know if you knew what you were getting yourself into with this question, Laura, but okay. The bumblebee is actually a very communal animal, and they all work together and they're very social. So talk about connecting. Mm-hmm. And what's really cool about bees is if you look at them, physiologically, the way their body design is, they are not supposed to be able to fly. Mm-hmm. And somehow they find a way to fly. And I thought, well, that just fits in great with people in their career who feel like they're stuck and they have no way out. Mm-hmm. That together we can create a community and see that we can all fly. Mm-hmm. So it really was an accident. Isn't that crazy? I love what the bee symbolizes. And I've actually had moments where I've had bees, like one bee flying around me when I'm out with other people and will not leave me alone, and isn't going near anyone else. And I'm like, why is this bee bugging me? And then if I just recognize okay, this is my spirit animal right now. The bee is just trying to tell me to keep going with Lolabees and keep doing it. And so maybe that's kind of weird.
I love that. No, not at all. I love that. Karen was just showing you her bee necklace.
Bees in the mint door.
Oh yeah, I remember your bee necklace.
My bee necklace is always on me. No matter where I go, this bee is always here. And it was a patient of mine that she didn't have this exact necklace because I didn't take it from her, but she had this necklace, and I coveted it for a long time whenever she came in for her orthodontic treatment over the couple of years that it took. And when I left dentistry, I bought myself my bee. And
I love it. I remember talking to you about your bee when we were together in Florida last October. And I forgot about it, but I love it.
The bee is a big part of me. But bees are pretty cool now. Everywhere you look, there's bee merchandise and there's bees, and it's everywhere now. So you're on trend.
That's all I care about.
Well, and I love that you label it a happy little mistake like Bob Ross, but because there really is, everything about that is beautiful, just like all of his happy little mistakes that ended up being beautiful, right? So yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for being a wonderful bee in our community.
Our hive.
Yes. Creating a hive. Make sure you check out Laura in her Facebook group, Dentist Side Gigs. We'll include the link to that. We'll have the link to her website and also the link to her Dentist Side Gigs Summit coming up this summer, which sounds really exciting. So thank you for all you do and for being with us here today. Keep doing and shining and buzzing all your goodness around.
Thanks, guys. I always love being with you.
Awesome. All right. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okie dokes.
All right. Cheers, everyone.